In this video, we will look at factorising expressions. So to factorise, we need to find the highest common factor, or HCF, of both terms and write it outside the brackets. Then divide each term by the highest common factor and write them inside the brackets. So factorising is really the opposite of expanding, which you just learnt in the previous video. So for example 1, factorise 4x plus 8. The highest common factor of 4x and 8 is 4. So the highest number that goes into both is 4. So we bring 4 out the front and write in brackets. Now think, what number goes here so that if I had to expand it, 4 times what gives 4x? Well, it has to be x. Then 4 times what, if I expand it that way, would give me positive 8. It must be positive 2. Okay, in part B, the highest number that goes into both of these is 5. So bringing 5 out the front. 5 times what would give me 15m? Well, that would be 5 times 3m. Then 5 times what gives minus 10a? Must be minus 2a. Part C, the highest number, well, there isn't a number at the moment, but there is a letter because x goes into both here. So taking x out the front, then think, if I were to expand the brackets, x times what gives x squared? It must be x. Then x times 5 would give 5x if expanding the brackets there. Okay, the next one. Again, there is a letter that goes into both. It's x, so taking x out the front. And if you were to expand the brackets, x times what would give 2xy? It's basically what's left, just 2y. And then x times m, or minus m, would give you that minus xm there. So x times minus m in there. In part E, the highest number that goes into both, well, there isn't a number, but there is a letter, it's p. So taking p out the front, and then thinking if you expanded the brackets, p times what would give 12p, so that would be 12. And then p times what to go in there would give 5pr, so it's just what's left, so plus 5r. Okay, so that's the final answer there. Example 2, factorise 7ab plus 14a. Now, there is a highest number or highest common factor that goes into both 7 and 14. It's 7. So we can pull 7 out the front. And there's also a letter because you can see that a is in both of them as well. So 7a comes out the front. Then if this was to be expanded, think 7 times what would give 7ab? Must be b. Then 7a times what would give positive 14a? Well, that's just been times by positive 2. So we have 7a bracket b plus 2. Part B, 2 goes into both 2 and 6, and there's also x as well. So let's pull 2x out the front. Now 2x times what gives 2x? It's not 0, it's 1. Then 2x times what gives minus 6xy? Well, there's no y, so it has to have a y in there, and 2 times 3 is 6. So we know it has to be 3y, and there's a minus sign there, so it must be minus 3y. Okay, in part C, there's a y in both of them, so we definitely know that y is going to be out the front, and the highest common factor of 9 and 6 is 3, so pulling 3y out the front. 3y times what gives 9xy? That would be 3x. And 3y times what gives positive 6my? Well, y is already there, so that's fine. We need an m, and 3 times 2 is 6, so it must be plus 2m. Okay, now part D. The highest common factor of 12 and 3 is 3. And A, B and C appears in both of those terms, so pulling A, B, C out the front. Now in the brackets, 3abc times what gives 12a squared b squared c squared? Well, 3 times 4 is 12, and to get the rest of them squared we must have multiplied by the same thing. So that would be 4abc, and then 3abc times what gives 3abc? That's just 1. So plus 1 there. In the next one, we have x squared here and y squared. So you have to go with pulling out x and y, because we can't pull out x squared and y squared, because you can see this first term, the highest power of y is 1, and in here the highest power of x is 1. So pulling out xy, xy times what gives x squared y? Well, that's just being multiplied by x. And xy times what gives xy squared? That's just being multiplied by y. So pulling that out the front there, that's your final answer. Example 3, when the leading term, as in the number out the front, has a minus sign, we actually pull the minus out with the number at the front, which can make it a bit tricky for deciding what sign to use in the middle. So for example, the highest common factor of 4 and 12 we know is 4, but the first number there is minus, so we're going to pull a negative 4 out the front. Now, negative 4 times what gives negative 4x? That's just been multiplied by x. And negative 4 times what gives positive 12? Now, we can't write plus in here because if it was plus 3, this would be negative. So it has to become minus 3. And think, if you expanded it, would you get that answer? Well, this would give minus 4x. Minus 4 times minus 3 gives positive 12. So yes, that is the correct answer. In part B, the highest common factor of 3 and 9 is 3. And the first term is negative, so pulling the minus sign out with the number at the front. Minus 3 bracket. Minus 3 times what gives minus 3m? Well, that would be m. And minus 3 times what gives minus 9? Well, it can't be a negative sign here because that would mean this would have to be positive. So this must be positive, and 3 times what is 9? 3. And think, if you expanded it, would that work? And yes, it would work in this case. In part C, the first term is negative, so we know we're going to be pulling out a negative number. The highest common factor of 20 and 12 is 4. And we also have x in both terms, so we're going to pull that out as well. Now minus 4x times what gives minus 20x? That's just 5. And minus 4x times what gives positive 12xy. Now, in order for this negative to turn into the positive here when we multiply, we know that we must have a negative in the brackets. Then 4x times what gives this? Well, 4 times 3, and we're missing y, so it must be minus 3y. In part D, we have A and B in both of them, and there's a minus at the front, so pulling out AB, minus AB, Minus AB times what gives minus AB? That's just 1. And this is negative in here, so this is staying negative, so we're going to be multiplying by a positive. And all that's missing is multiplying by C to get ABC. So minus AB bracket 1 plus C. In part E, we have M is common to both, and we know we're pulling out a minus sign. Now the highest common factor of 8 and 12 is 4. So pulling out minus 4M. Now minus 4M times what gives 8MW. So the W is missing, and 4 times 2 is 8, so it's just 2W in brackets. Now this is negative and it's become positive, meaning we must have multiplied by a negative. And 4 times 3 is that, and the M's already there, so it's just minus 3. And that's the final answer there. So now I would like you to have a go at these on a piece of paper. So pause the video and I will now show you the answers. Okay, so those are the final answers there. This concludes the factorising video. Thank you.